age seems to have a negative effect on older people's electronic savvy.
Sometimes it has an effect on the younger people's
That's true.
electronic savvy.
Although the mayor's a big YouTuber now, so
Yeah. Yeah. Who would have thought that?
Not the mayor.
All right. I'm going to try to attempt to start the meeting, and then we'll just try to figure it out. So I'm going to go ahead and call roll. Terry, I assume he's here somewhere. He's gone.
He's here. He'll be audio in just a moment.
Okay. Robbie, you're here. Tim, you're here. Say here.
here.
All right. And then Willie, Willie, are you on?
I'm on.
Okay. And I know Tommy is out of pocket today, so he will not be joining us. So Mayor, are you ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
All right, Glenn, go ahead.
All right, gentlemen. First thing I want to look at is the run report for March. For March, we did 394 transports. That's right in line with our average is 404 a month for this fiscal year. At that rate, we'll be increasing our call volume by 370 over last year. Looks like we'll be making 4,855 against the 4,484 last year. That'll be an increase of 8.2%. And of course, a lot of that will be COVID, without doubt. Our COVID calls have decreased dramatically. We are still getting some days 1 or 2 COVID calls a day. So, excuse me, Chairman, did you say something?
No.
Okay. So it looks like we will be 370 over this year what we did last year.
Hey, Glenn, what about delays at the hospital? Is that kind of panning out some, or?
Pretty much non-existent right now, and I'm knocking on wood because it can happen at any time, but they're doing very well right now.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, our collections report, we collected, as I told y'all last month, I thought it would be a big month this month. It is. We're averaging 133,000 a month. Last month, we collected 195,804. With that number, I'm projecting, and I always project a little low. I'm a little conservative on my projection. I'm a little over 1.6 million for the year. It'll be better than that, but that's what I'm projecting right now. Charles always chastises me because I'm way low, but it'd make him in 100,000 more than that. So we're looking about 1.6 or a little over right now. As far as collections are right in line. You can see our current is only 22%. That's the highest we got versus the over 180 days, which is 27%. And we're going back over our decide list. Our decide list is what we go through every couple of months and look and see what we need to write off and what we don't. And we're in the process of doing that now. So again, looks like we're going to come in a little over 1.6, between 1.6 and 1.7. And we collected 195,000 last month. So it is up a good bit. Kind of expecting that though. Our response times, our computer, the system was not allowing us to run our average response time. I did it by hand and didn't include it in here. It came up to 9 minutes and 50 seconds. So it is back down under 10 minutes since the COVID calls have slowed down, and we're doing much better there. I did leave off, we were out of ambulances 6 times, and we had no calls waiting on our collection report. I always give that. So we had 6 calls waiting last month and no calls for 6 calls, no calls waiting. Our response times are great. Like I said, 950. If you go down through and look at it by run districts, they're all right in line, so there's nothing that jumps out there, so everything's good there. Our budget. We are 75% through the year. And if you look at attendance, our payroll is at 84.82, and then our overtime is at 82.89. Gentlemen, that is a direct correlation. I went through and did an audit on it. That's a direct correlation with our COVID employee base. We had 18 employees that were off for extended amount of time, one still off with COVID. So that is directly correlated to that. So it is up. If you look at the payroll line items up through November, it is right on line with budget. November and December, it went crazy when we started having employees get COVID and off for up to 10 days. So it hit us pretty hard. Not pretty hard, very hard.
Okay.
Communication, excuse me?
No, I was going to say nothing we can do about that. So
Yeah. We did, Mayor, you may want to speak to this. I think hopefully we did recoup some of that because we sent all our payroll records in to the state and FEMA, and hopefully some of that was recoupable that like you said, we couldn't control. So it was out of our control. And then go down and look at maintenance and repair of equipment. We've had some problems with our cardiac monitors. Can't do without them, so I've had to get those repaired. But hopefully I'm fixing to order another one so we have a backup, and that will help. I do have the money in the budget for that, so I was just waiting to make sure that everything was okay before I made that purchase. Everything else, maintenance and repair of vehicles, it's showing at 81.73, gentlemen, versus 75% through the year. I just turned in a lot of invoices that we've had work done on units, and that will be going up dramatically. I wouldn't be surprised if next month, I don't know for sure, it'll be right at probably at budget. So you can expect an increase in that next month. Drugs and medical supplies, with the increase in call volume, you can expect that to be up, and it is up over budget right now, 7%, but that is expected, like I said. But everything else is pretty much in line. So down at the insurance cost, that is what it is. So overall, 75% through the month, we are at 76.17%. So slightly over, 1% over what we should be at. And I'm watching the numbers, so making sure that we come in at budget, gentlemen.
yeah, okay. All right, Glenn, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Director Miller?
Commissioner Reeves, this is Robbie. I'd just like to say, of those 394 calls in March, one of those was my 13-year-old son, and I can't express my appreciation for the staff and Director Miller enough. When it's your own people getting toted away in one of those big boxes to get service, it brings it home all the more. So, Glenn, to you and your team, Mr. Halford was fantastic, and I can't thank you guys enough.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it does hit a nerve when it's your own family. It's quite different, that's for sure.
Yep. All right. Does anybody have anything else? All right, Glenn, thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. All right, let's go to number 2, animal shelter update. Mayor, I'll turn that over to you.
Sir, we're finally getting some stuff to talk about on the animal shelter. Quick update on the property. Mr. Rosser has gotten everything approved. He's talked to Mr. Howell. They're setting up a date sometime in the very near future to finalize that piece of property. Doesn't seem to be any problems. So I'm making the assumption now that everything's done and there's no problems. And until he tells me otherwise, that's where I'm going to handle it. What I've got in front of y'all tonight was to give y'all some information to sort of where we're at. When I was talking to Spirit Architecture, we went through several plans, and the schematics in your packet, there are 3 pages of it. Those are sort of what he is using as a template to put together budget. Introduced me to a gentleman from Smith Doyle Contractors. Now their specialty, at least what they were pitching to me, was as a construction manager. Basically, we'd hire him for a percentage or a flat fee of the project. And he would come in and bid everything out on our behalf, try to get the best price. And good thing about it is that if we do it this way, we'll be able to include as many local folks as we can entice into it. Generally, when we do a turnkey operation, sometimes they bring in their own contractors they've got relationships with. We'd have a little bit better angle on this. Anyway, with that being said, I asked him to review what the architecture firm had put together. And the numbers he came back with were two of them. One, he's got just for the building itself. Now, this is built in place, built to those plans you have in front of your packet, of about $682,500. That's just for the building, everything in it. I'll have to go back. I'm not sure there's furnishings such as office furniture, but that should be very minimal. There's another price in here of $187,000. That is for land prep. Now I've talked to Mr. Dowdy at Public Works. He's going to get me a price on doing that with county labor. And I would expect that to come in much lower. Not only that, we've had some offers from some contractors in the communities that when we got into this, they would be willing to help with that also. What we've got to do out there is basically clean out a lot of woods. We'll have to haul in some dirt to level off the property so that it is, level. There was a low spot in that particular one of the places, so we've got some fill we've got to bring in. We do have fill dirt in the area, so cost of that will be somewhat, won't be too bad. That's where we are now. In talking with the gentleman Smith Doyle and the architectural firm, this is based on, I believe, 20 runs, let's call it. 4 of them would be intake, which you could put into either problem animals or new animals or disease animals, just someplace to hold them. And 16 of them would be animals that you can hold on to. This does not have a cat facility inside it. In talking with the sheriff, Commissioner Goodrow, give me just a second, I'll get back with you. In talking with the sheriff, I'm trying to get some sort of handle on how many do we need. He gave me a price if we wanted to add 4 to it. It was $25,000, his estimate to the facility. So if we wanted to start smaller somewhat and have a somewhat smaller, cost, but build out later, we have that option. The cat facility, talking with the sheriff and also the architectural firm. The sheriff says they don't handle a lot of cats. A lot of them, they have places to go with them from the get-go. I think he said that they've got a number of barns and folks who want some mousers, so they're able to adopt them out. Architectural firm suggested we put, if we wanted to have some sort of cat facility, create something happened to the computer. Create a feral animal house outside. Basically, we could feed them a little bit, but the cats would take care of themselves, and that we could trap and spay and neuter the ones that would come in who are not already done so. So that would be one way of handling those. Anyway, that's an update of where we are. The budget that I gave them was $500,000. Both of them looked at me like, after they gave me the numbers, because we're pushing nearly $900,000, $850,000, $900,000 with what I've given you. So the cost is going up some, more than I had hoped. We looked at modular, basically building off-site and bringing them in. Hopefully there'd be some savings there, but it turned out to be actually 6 in one, half dozen another. And if we build it on site the way we want to, expanding it in the future would be much easier. That's where we are right now. Happy to answer some questions or get some direction, or if we need to bring somebody else in to talk.
Mayor. Go ahead.
Who's that?
Goodrow.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
So I was looking over what Smith Doyle proposal was for their the 682,000. In there, in number 4, it says to construct 12 standard kennels plus 4, I guess, quarantine kennels, isolation kennels. But on the plans,
He's got 20.
18 kennels and 4 isolation kennels. So we need to get that cleared up, see if that adds something or if that is a misprint.
Okay.
In addition, I was looking at how the building was going to be placed on the property, and I was trying to look at the elevation, and the elevation labels on the elevation plan, I believe, is mislabeled. The north elevation, I think,
It is.
supposed to be west.
Yes. You're correct. I pointed that out to him. Yeah.
Maybe, make sure. So even with this 682,000, we're over what we were thought the whole thing would be, just for the building. How is this going to impact? Let's say it's going to be 869,000 when it's all said and done. How is this going to impact what we plan? Is this going to put us off, or are we going to be able to cover that?
I say go ahead and move. If we're going to do this, we need to go ahead and move forward with a facility. Now,
Okay.
I'll phrase it that way. Whether we get start off now, I was doing some what ifs with the sheriff, and he said, of course, both of us don't know what the future looks like. This thing could explode where we need bunches of them, or it could just sort of work really well like it is now because they're bringing in animals. They have a place for them to go. So it could almost be like a transit station. That being said, he said, 8 to 12 total runs right now would suit him for the very near future. When we start going out, a year or two, it could grow. Now I've got something for you later right after this to talk about some capping of animals, so that I don't know if they'll play into it or not, but I want to talk to you about that. But right now we could go with a somewhat smaller one, but we're not going to reduce the price a lot. For reducing it by 4 would save us $25,000. If in the future we want to come back in and add that $25,000, those 4 runs, it's going to cost us more than $25,000, probably 40 more. So, if we have some sort of idea and we can stomach it, now's the time to do it and get one that we probably have a little bit of excess overkill, but knowing that we can grow into it. Now, you did mention when you read through there, they are going to build these runs out of concrete block. So instead of being metal cages, they're going to be a metal front and a metal back, I think. But the dividers are going to be concrete. So you can go in there, the washers, you can wash them down, you can paint them, bring the animals in and out. So it should be, once we've got it there, it should last quite a long time. I'd say move forward with it. Like I said, we've got right at $350,000 in it. So take $350,000 off whatever your number is. Let's say it's $850. So we got $500,000 we got to come up with. And we put that over a number of years. I just use fees. And if we pull some out of our pocket to start with and use the fees as like we're doing now to cover the yearly cost or payback, I'd say do that. The next thing after this is once we decide on this, and it's going to be a cost that we need to discuss at some point in time, is this going to take a couple more folks, or at least one more person to run the facility, who's going to be a manager, who's going to be there. And in talking with the sheriff and the folks out there, I could easily see that we're going to need another person in the field, or maybe a person part in the field and part at the facility. If we're able to run this like Hardeman County does, they have a nonprofit that basically furnished all the labor, except for the actual employees out there going after the animals. All them labor at the facility, running it, taking care of it, washing it out, all that was taken care of by volunteers. If we can have an organization that would step up and provide some help there, of course, that would back off on our costs there. the ongoing cost yearly is probably going to be much more than the cost to actually operate it. If you look at it now, we've got 2 individuals who are running the facility. We're going to have at least those, and then somebody at the facility to make sure that this is run correctly. And the whole idea was so that'd be a place for the public to come into. So that's going to be a part of their job also. And of course, in the next month or so, I've got to come back with you with some sort of how we're going to take care of the pet data thing. I've been having conversations with the folks at the jail on how they're envisioning that, and we're working through a couple of scenarios. So I'll bring that back to you next month. That's where we are right now. I think you've got public support for doing something. I don't think anybody wants a Taj Mahal out there. I think if we are able to address the dog population and then have a plan on what we're going to do with the cats, I think you've covered most of the bases. And if there's something you see in this that I've either put too much into, is not enough, actually, I'd like to start off as tight to the budget as we can. And then if we've got extra funds at some point, whether we get some COVID money that shows up or whether we find some grant money or whatever, that we can expand upon it there. And talking about grant money, I did finally get a response from the Robinson Foundation, who is locally done and was turned down simply because they said we had too many requests this year and they couldn't fill all of them. So they sent their money elsewhere.
Okay. Mayor, what is your idea of a time frame, maybe?
And this is strictly penciled in as just something so I could give the architectural firm a place to start. Would be aim for August, doing something. Hopefully have this either breaking ground and actually building something, or at the very least going out for bid with having somebody putting together the cost of it and bidding this out. Next month, I'm probably going to come back to you or to Budget One and ask that we are able to enter in, basically ask for qualifications on this construction manager and see who we get to apply. That seems like a scenario that would work well for us. And it would be one not at risk. This would be a person who would do it and not have any part of the job. When we've looked at some school projects in the past, there was always somebody who wanted to be a construction manager, but they wanted to do some of it themselves. That's not what I envision using it. Since I have a firm that's willing to do it the way we want, I think would be more transparent and probably save us some funds in the long run.
Is there anything you need from us tonight?
I don't guess so. I just want to give you an idea of where we are. And if there's anything, we're going to have some more discussions with both parties and see if there's anything we can do on tweaking the numbers. I still like my $500,000 budget. I don't know that I'm going to get it. And if any of y'all, or each of y'all have a little bit different experience and maybe some suggestions, I'd be more than happy to entertain those either now, or if you think about them next week or so, just give me a call. It's something to bring that cost down. And the cost may come down because there are some folks in the community who are willing to help either by donating material or donating their time rather than dollars. So the overall cost, we may have a $850,000 project, but because of what's donated through some help, that may come down somewhat.
Mayor,
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
A few points of clarification. I'm fairly familiar with this process and buildings in general, so it's what I've done for my whole career. The building itself appears to be around 3,000 square feet. I was glancing through some of the documents there on the width and length of that thing. It looks like it's about a 3,000 square foot building.
Actually, it's probably going to be a little bit smaller because I think Commissioner Goodrow pointed that out. It's probably be pushing 2,700, but not a lot smaller, but some smaller.
Okay. With that being said, you're looking at a $700,000 building cost. That's I've built a whole lot of metal buildings for a lot less than that per square foot. So and they were they were much more expensive than this. So that's a that's a little eye-opening there just from a cost per square foot standpoint, especially considering the lack of frills inside of it. And there should not be a robust mechanical, electrical, plumbing system compared to something out of the ordinary either. So the other side of that coin, the CM piece of this can be very beneficial. It can also just be another person with a fee on it. I'm always skeptical of architects and construction managers anyways, because their price is based on the total price of the job. So they negotiate a fee and then they get paid based on that fee. So if it's 800,000, they get a heck of a lot more than if it's 500,000. So you're not saying that anybody's intentionally doing that. And at this stage, I know they're both trying to cover themselves, but I would really challenge us. I'm not nearly as passionate about this, I know, and hadn't put near as much time into it as Tim and some others have, but I would really challenge us just from a fiduciary responsibility standpoint that $500,000 for a building this size with what's going in it is quite a bit of money. If we're, if we were talking about building, I don't know, something extravagant for that money, it'd be different. But that's about $175 a square foot already to keep it in budget, and we're talking about getting well outside of that. So that's just my 2 cents. So.
You're speaking music to my ears. If I can figure out a way to do what you're saying, I'd be happy. If you don't mind, if I can put together a meeting, because you've got some definitely insight. If you don't mind me reaching out to you at some point in time, I'd appreciate it.
I'd be delighted to.
And on the CM portion, we did talk about that very thing because of the larger the project, generally they have percentage, and he's willing to have a flat fee. We can sort of negotiate that on the front end, and that way he can work strictly on our behalf to get the cost as low as possible.
Okay.
Robbie, as someone has been working towards this project and this goal, I appreciate you pointing that out, and whatever efforts you can give and direction and working with the mayor on this. I know I and the others that have looked towards this goal would appreciate that as well.
Certainly.
So I guess, Mr. Chairman, to summarize it, I'll get with these folks again over the next week or two, and we'll go over the numbers, and I'll reach out to everybody who wants to be involved in the meeting to put some input in this and see what we can do about getting that done. And then hopefully bring you back I don't know what you want to call it, a polished or finished product next month, but something that you can at least decide whether you want to vote on that to move forward with it or whether we need to talk about some more.
Okay. Go ahead, whoever that was.
Mayor, have we brought, I know you've talked with the sheriff, but have we spoken with the animal control officers or the nonprofit that's been working towards this goal for their input? They've done a lot of research, the nonprofit has, and the animal control officers are intimately involved. Have we brought them into the mix yet?
I did send this back to the sheriff, and he did send me some comments from them. The layout, I think they said was okay. I mean, in general terms, they pointed out about the lack of cat facilities and what that needed. There was some other little comments that I'm going to bring back to the architect just for, working how it flows more than anything else. Now, as far as getting back to the Kennys and the organization, have not reached out to them yet. I have seen Mr. Bob a couple of weeks ago, and we talked briefly about it, but I have not brought him in right now. And I'll probably reach out to him just so that he can have some input on where we are with this and make sure he's good with what they've done, because they did raise quite a bit of money toward this project.
So one of the things that I would imagine they brought up, and if they haven't, they have in the past, is a sally port when they're unloading these animals, something that they could contain. I don't know that it has to be something that is out of the elements as much as it is something that will contain an animal from getting away from them.
Right. The one thing they did point out was that the drawing did not show any fence around it. Well, there's going to have to be a fence around it. Even if there wasn't a salad port, you don't want a dog taking off because the dog's going to take off. And we'll have something out there that whether they drive into it, whether almost they back into it to unload. He didn't like talking about animal shelters.
We're also
You didn't hear the cat crying earlier.
So, but
getting
anyway,
opinions from a dog too.
that's one of the things I'm going to bring up to them to see how that factors into the cost to make sure that they've got that accounted for.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Tim, is that it?
That's it.
All right. Is that anybody have any other comments about this part of the agenda? If not, we'll move on. Mayor, you want to address the other?
Please.
Adam?
In talking with Mr. Pittner, Mr. Rosser, and the sheriff, there's been a couple of instances over the last maybe year and a half, 2 years, where we've had folks who have had animals too many animals, and we've had to take them into court and to try to get the animals taken care of, either removed or whatever, everything from sound to noise to just a bad situation. And there was this sort of back and forth between Mr. Rosser and Mr. Pittner. Mr. Rosser wants a zoning issue where he can just simply say there's only going to be so many animals someplace. And Mr. Pittner is that I'm not animal enforcement. So what I've tried to do is to put together a draft on an ordinance to consider and just sort of bring it to your attention. What I've got in front of you, when Mr. Rosser goes to court, he's been told by the judges that if you had something out there that said people could only have X number of animals, and if they've got more than that and haven't followed the rules, then I've got something I can do and I can help you. Whereas if you don't have something out there with some sort of process, then basically you've got to show that they're not being cared for, that there's a nuisance to everybody else. There's a lot more hoops to jump through. Whereas if you had something on the front end, then you'd probably avoid a lot of this. This is an attempt to do that. Essentially what it is at trying to say that somebody can have, and I put 6. 6 is the number Mr. Rosser brought to me, so I've structured it around that. Saying anything up to 6 animals that you don't have to have any permission or anything, and that you probably will not be a nuisance to your neighbor. Now, if you've got 6 lap dogs as opposed to 6 beagles out there, it's going to be a lot of difference, but you've got to start somewhere. So anything more than 6 that you would have animal control to come out based on some of the language I've got in there, that the facility would be far enough away from the line so that the sound is not an issue if there's neighbors, and that there's a way for the animals are taken care of. And I've basically gone the either septic system and that's overkill, or some way to make sure that they're clean, whether you got a process or you're taking care of them, you have them running in the backyard, or however that's done. And so there's not a nuisance to the neighbors. By doing this and set up a process so that we have a fee, and I think $100 fee in there, that'd be a lifetime fee if you got it, and that could be a 0 fee for just so that you have a process. Something that we've got set up so that if there's a problem with somebody starting a animal shelter on their own, and currently we don't have any reason they can't do it unless if they're in certain areas, or if somebody has a lot of animals and everything from a hoarder to somebody who just loves animals, but maybe they're in the wrong area of the county because they have too many neighbors. This would be a way to sort of smooth out the process, let folks have something built in so if they do meet these criteria, then that gives them some protection against their neighbors that we've done what the county asked. We've got a facility that meets their standards, and then it puts law enforcement in a better position when they're called out for nuisance calls. What I've got for you tonight is just a draft. There's nothing sacrosanct about it. There's parts in it that we need to talk about. I think now's time to do it. Or if you don't like the idea at all, I can just put it back in the folder and go on to the next project. One thing that was brought up is that we have a couple of folks who make a little bit of a living on hunting dogs. And of course, these tend to be dogs that bark because that's what they're there for. I've tried to put something into there so that if they have a business license or they've got some sort of criteria, it puts them apart from somebody who just owns dogs. And that gives them a little protection, a little something out of the norm. And really is pretty much to get a conversation started to see if we can put together something that would give Mr. Rosser and some leverage on making sure that we have fewer problems in the community.
So what would be the difference between this and someone putting 8 loud goats on their 1 acre property? I mean, what would be the difference?
The only difference is that I don't have a goat problem now. And if I start having goats in, I'm probably going to come back to the goat ordinance. But right now, I don't have that issue, and I'm only addressing the problems that I currently have. Points well taken. And like I said, the numbers, not sacrosanct. If you have another animal out there that's causing a nuisance problem, one neighbor can always sue another neighbor, but law enforcement, county governments, and whoever else is generally gets sucked into it because somebody's doing something that somebody views as should have been taken care of on the front end.
Well, how many complaints? How big a problem is this? Is this like, I mean, as big a county as we have, if 2 complaints does not warrant, I don't think, this addition. So what?
We had one particular problem that was out north part of the county as a community that was pretty rural. They had, I believe, 30 dogs that the lady she was asked to leave Shelby County and bought a piece of property in Fayette County and put those in place. And animal control was out there a number of times. Those are the ones we actually had to take to court. There are a couple other instances that I think animal control was able to persuade. And there have been a couple of rescue operations I think were started and stopped because it was easy to do. I think the reason they stopped was more a financial concern as opposed to something that we did. And what I'm getting back from some neighbors, particularly in this instance, north in the county, was that if we'd had something in place, then they would have had, some protection. Now, you're right. Fayette County is a large county. We have 750 square miles. I can't tell you I've had more than maybe 5 or 6 in the last 2 years that sort of rise to the level that this would be useful. But again, I don't think I've got that many places where this is going to be a hindrance. And that is what I'm trying to do, get that middle ground where folks probably won't ever hit this limit for the most part. But those that do are actually providing services or the facilities needed to keep these animals both maintained humanely and one so that they're not a distraction to their neighbor.
Did we solve the 5 or 6 problems? Did we solve those problems with what we have in place now?
The one that is north of the county, the worst one, I think is still ongoing. We've been in court and spent dollars trying to take care of that one. The others, I think, have been solved, like I said, through some of what they were able to do and some with just financial situations. Some of it took care of themselves. I won't be,
Okay. Is there any opinions? What's the pleasure of the committee?
I guess I could see this in a municipality, like Somerville or Oakland or Rossville, but in the rural county area, I'm hesitant to jump on this right now. That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, and you're right. This is only outside the cities. The portion that allows us to do any of this is actually the state was giving the county some powers that initially were just city owned or city authority. And like I said, this may be too early. Maybe may not work for a whole bunch of reasons. But I definitely wanted to lay it on the table for somebody to look at. If we need to tweak it, we can. If we need to file it for later, we can do that too.
Anybody else have any opinions?
I think I'd like to, as far as committee is concerned, table it until we can meet in person and we can have those that are bringing this to our attention at the table so they can explain further what we have in place now and the necessity for this, the real necessity for this, if that's agreeable to the others.
Okay, Mayor, are you, we don't have a motion on the table to table, so Mayor, are you
I
okay?
really didn't- Yeah, and I didn't expect a motion tonight to either do this. That's not my intention. It's basically put it on the table for discussion because Lord knows I probably didn't hit it right the first time. So everybody needs to mull it over, whether it's good or bad or if things need to be changed in it.
Is it agreeable with the committee just to kind of put it off until we meet together and discuss it again in person?
Mr. Chairman,
But
Can y'all hear Terry?
Robbie, you okay with that?
I am okay with that. Terry's trying to ask a question. Can you?
Robbie? Who is that? Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
if I'm not mistaken, the only thing that the animal control can go by now is animal abuse. And we need to look at that.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry. I think I can hear you. We'll see what happens.
Okay. I'd like to see a copy of that animal abuse statute because I think that's the only thing is that they have to enforce at this time. And I agree with the mayor. This would give them something that if a person is going to have more than X number of dogs, then they have to show that they have a kennel. They have some way of taking care of those animals. So that I don't know what is required to make a case on animal abuse. That's all I have.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner, thanks, and I'll be sure to look that up and I'll get that to y'all.
Thank you.
I think Commissioner Reeves is fading in and out on us.
Yeah, bedtime.
Okay, agreeable. Okay, is everybody agreeable to kind of wait to take any action on this? I'm sorry? What? Or is everybody agreeable to kind of put this off till we all can meet together? Several
Yes.
months down the road? Is there
Yes.
Yeah,
can anybody hear me? Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right, Willie, you okay doing that?
yes,
Okay, all right, let's just put it off. Let's just put it off until we can all meet together and we'll look at this, plus what Terry asked to look at. We'll do it all together. Okay?
yes.
Okay. All right. Mayor, the last thing I have is the Ag Committee, but I think that went to development. Is that right?
You're correct. They did vote on it and pass those on.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else from the committee? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion.
All right. Hit that leave button. We'll leave out of here. So
All right.
good job,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.